All right, welcome everyone. I just wanted to show the finished painting right up front here in the beginning of the video. So we're going to be working on a lot of techniques and methods today on my video. But right now, I just wanted to kind of show you that even while we're working on some basic fundamentals in watercolor with mixing paint and colors and washes in your palette and how you can utilize that kind of a method and technique to really improve your watercolors, we're going to also paint a really fun composition here. So you can kind of see we're going to really get into the feeling of the islands here and the palm trees. So we'll be right back. All right, welcome everyone. Thanks again for stopping by. It's an Extreme Beginner series. This is Chris Petri. I really appreciate everyone coming by. We're going to have a great time kind of just going over some key ideas with when you're just starting out in watercolors, and there's a lot of things coming at you, all kinds of information. You're like a sponge. You're out there, soaking in everything, and you're trying to stay on track with your watercolor paintings, and it's easy to kind of get bogged down with so much information out there. I just remember when I first started watercolor, I'm thinking back right now, and I just remember there was just so many things. I felt so bombarded with so many different videos, and I was looking at books and all these different things. But the one thing I can say is once you probably have a couple years under your belt, you start to really kind of see the key important things you need to do in watercolor. Like you kind of learn the things you shouldn't be doing. Like you kind of, just by default, you learn the pitfalls you want to stay away from, and then you're trying to keep those good habits going, the ones that you know are really working for you. And that's kind of how we all have to kind of come through the process of watercolor. So that's what I try to do here. I try to, on my channel, make sure you're learning all the fundamentals of watercolor painting, and especially in the beginning when you're first starting out, or if you're in your first 1 or 2 years. Depends on how much you paint, of course. If you're painting like every day a couple hours, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to kind of work through a lot of the pitfalls as you go a lot quicker. Someone that's taking their time more, they don't have as much time to paint and devote to painting, then it's a little more challenging. It takes a little longer to learn, but that's just the way it is. Some people can't devote as much time. They have more responsibilities, or they're still working jobs, all these different things. So I totally understand. I know you're all doing a great job out there. Very proud of everybody. And I just want to say this is just some of the most useful information I feel like I can kind of share that's going to go a long way. So I guess I just want to start out by kind of explaining that your palette and your paints and the way you're using your brush and your water and your paints is really critical with watercolors, because you can kind of really head off at the pass, so to speak, a lot of issues you might have when you're painting in watercolor. So this is what the video is about. Basically, it's about making sure that we're working with our palette in the exact correct way that will really give you a lot of versatility, and it'll really help your paintings to look better. So we'll do maybe just a small composition, and we'll work on the ideas of the palette along with it, so we kind of have a little bit of fun. So we're going to kind of do a nice, interesting painting, and at the same time, we're working on our techniques and our methods with our palette work and our brush work and our water and paint. So I have just a simple glass of water here, and I have a small piece of kitchen sponge that I take a kitchen sponge and trim it down into 4 pieces, and I just have a little small piece here. I don't really need a really large sponge. I'm not using a ton of water here. We're kind of painting small. If you're painting a larger painting, then you might need a larger sponge or whatever. But if just painting in small sections here, doing small compositions, especially in the beginning when you're first starting watercolor, painting small is much better. But if you want to go for it and go for big paintings too, do it. I suggest whatever you want to do, go for it. Don't worry about it. You just have to kind of feel it out yourself. But if you do work kind of in smaller compositions when you're first starting, it's more like you're concentrating your efforts in one area, and it's a little easier than if you're working on a large sheet of paper or something like that, because then you're kind of trying to cover more territory, and it might be a little more challenging, but you'll figure that out. And so the first thing I wanted to say is, with your palette, I'm just going to use this one brush, the Simply Simmons number 6, my round brush. I'll just use this one for this demo. And then basically, let's just get some colors in our palette. So what I'm thinking is, I'll start out with some green up here. So now what I'm going to kind of explain is, let's try to keep some really thick, strong, almost straight paint and hardly any water over here on the right side of our palette. So we'll have this whole mixing area up here to kind of focus on right now. So let's keep our greens, we'll use two greens here, the lighter and the darker green, or if you like the more warmer green, a warmer green and a cooler green. This green up here has more blue in it, and it's also like a little darker. And this one's lighter and it's got a little more yellow in it, so to speak. So we call that a warm and a cool green. So we have two greens here, a warm and a cool green. We can even add a little bit of blue to this one if we wanted to. But that's basically our two greens, and you can kind of see how thick that looks. So that's what you want to kind of have in your palette to start with right now as you're doing this exercise along with me. So you want to keep some really rich, thick paint, not much water. You can kind of see how that's not puddling up with a lot of water. That's by simply just rinsing the brush and drying off your brush on the sponge a little bit by tapping on the sponge, damp sponge. And then you go right into your paint. And I did, when I started here, I did use my spritzer bottle. Right when I started, before I turned on the camera, I spritzed the paints with a little bit of water, and I also cleaned up my palette, spritzed that all down with some water and cleaned it out with a paper towel. This way we have a nice clean working surface. Okay, so now, then we'll notice the next thing is, let's mix the same colors except we'll add more water now. So what we'll do is we'll take the same colors, rinse off the brush, dry it off, do the same method as you did here. Take the both colors, get them on the palette, like that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little more water and just add a little bit of water. So we rinse the brush off, tap one time, maybe just one time, and then go right in here and kind of make this a little bit lighter. Can you see how that's a lighter wash like that? So now you're getting the feel for two types of paint mixtures in your palette that you can kind of take advantage of, and it'll add up to big dividends when you're painting, because you'll be able to control your intensity of your colors on your watercolor painting. So you can go with a really, really dark tonal value with your darker colors. Same here, same two colors over here, but now we added water over here. Can you see how I added that? Good, you can see that? And that will give us a lighter tonal value. So now we'll just take a quick look over here and say, all right, well, how does that translate when we're working on our painting? Let's just say we'll take two squares here. I'll just make two squares. You can make circles, pyramids, whatever you like, whatever shapes you like. And then over here we'll do another two like this. Like that. Okay, so now we have four squares, and what we'll do is we'll get the effect of how this translates over here onto the paper. So let's go over here. And then we'll just kind of, paint in this swatch here, this color swatch, like that. Pick up a little more paint right from that right side here, where it's the thicker, richer paint, not much water. And then you can practice your brush strokes. There's all kinds of brush strokes you can do. There's Z strokes, S strokes. You can just fill it in like this if you like, or go across this way. It's good to practice all the different brush strokes you can muster. Now we'll go in here below and get the other wash. Put a little more in there, and then we'll just go over here, and you can kind of see already what beautiful, wow, look how good that looks. The wash is nice and rich in color, intensity. Looks good. And then there's times you're going to want light washes, really light, beautiful looking washes, not as intense as this, and that's where we have this over here. So we have already planned out what we're going to do by adding our colors to our palette, and we kind of already thought about, we want some dark areas, some darker tonal values, richer colors, more intense colors, and then we want some lighter washes over here too. So then we're going to do that. We'll come over here, we'll do our top color first, which is the more cooler green, darker green up here, and we'll do this, and we'll get this in like so. And that looks pretty good too. Just a lighter wash. Rinse off our brush, take off a little bit of water, and then we'll come down here and get the lighter green wash here. Pick up a little more there. I think we might need a little more color, a little more water. And that's how you can kind of see the effects of putting and planning out your colors and your washes and your paints in your palette first, and then bringing them over to your paper. You'll see me do this a lot on the Extreme Beginners videos, where I like to mix up my colors first, get them into the palette, pretty much the colors we will use for our painting, and then we can start painting. And we kind of have everything already set up here, and we just start working into our painting from the palette over to the painting. The problem some people will have is sometimes some artists will, when they're starting out, they'll forget to pre-plan and put their paints in the palette first, and they'll just start going in here into the paints and going over to the paper. And what happens there, it's more like it's harder to keep a track of keeping your painting going and keeping the washes going and looking good without letting things dry and look awkward. You know, sometimes if you put a wash down and then you let it dry for too long, and then you come back and you're doing this, and then you come over here to continue painting and it's already dry, and then it kind of, you get a lot of awkward looking marks on the paper if you're sort of, you know, taking too much time over here in the palette mixing and figuring out what colors you're going to use and whatever. Not a problem. That's the way to resolve that problem if you do have that issue sometimes of things drying over here while you're trying to mix more paints. Try to mix out your colors first on your palette and use your whole palette. And even if you want to get a larger palette or another palette and have two of these next to each other, two, you know, one next to you, can, you know, be creative. Does that make sense? Be creative. If you need larger palette areas or you need more areas to mix more of your paints in, just grab another one of these online, buy another one of these, and then you can take these apart. They come apart real easy. I think I have an extra one here. You can take these apart really easy. These you can take apart. You just take these and you can break them right apart easy like that. So you can have an additional mixing part, you know, a palette over here. Your mixing section over here. You just add another one, tape it down to your table, or you put it on some of that carpet or drawer liner like this I use, and it won't move around and slide around. And you have two, and then you can even work out more colors first before you start your painting, and then you'll really be ahead of things. Because if you think about it, you can just take all of your paints mixtures that you're going to use for your painting, mix them all out on this area here first, maybe one or two of these, and then as you go, you can always spritz a little water on your palette areas here to keep your paints moist, because they might dry a little bit as you're going, but you'll always kind of see the colors out here. And then if you need more over here, so if I like start to run out of green, well, I kind of already see the colors. They match right here, and I go, oh yeah, I just got to add a little more of this to the palette, a little more of this to the palette. So you can really, I think working with your palette with all your colors set up first before you go in and start doing a painting really helps a lot. Unless you're doing something simple like, you know, like a black and white painting, well then you really don't have to worry about any of this, because you would just be maybe using some black and brown together, or, you know, maybe if you're using like a monochromatic type painting where you're just using black and white paint. I do that a lot. So that kind of saves me any kind of worries about mixing colors if I just want to go in and work on like light and, you know, technique and things like that without worrying about mixing colors. But that's kind of another video we can do. But we'll keep going here. Maybe we'll mix another few colors here. So then maybe next we'll do maybe some orange and darker orange. So we have a light orange, a darker orange. This is kind of like a pumpkin orange up here. This is more like a tangerine orange. And then we can do the same thing over here. We can go with a lighter orange. So we'll take that same light pumpkin type orange over here, add a little bit of water to it. So again, we're going to do the same method of a thinner paint over here with a little bit more water, and then a thicker paint over here with less water. And that's all we're trying to do, is get the feel of the tonal values, the darks and lights of the colors, the intensity of the colors with the mixing of the water. And then we'll do the same thing over here. A little bit of that tangerine orange with a little bit of water added to it, and you can kind of see how that looks like that. All right, now let's do the same thing. Now this time, we'll maybe do, let's maybe go some circles here. And this is good practice too. We'll do our practicing our drawing skills. So we'll do our circles. And we're going to do a painting in about a few minutes or so, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. Let's just do one more with the orange here. So again, I just rinse off the brush, dry off some of the water, and then go over to the palette and we'll pick up the kind of the pumpkin orange over here, and we'll do that. We might need a little more paint over here. But you can kind of see I need a little more there. I'll go straight into the paint like that. And incidentally, you can go in straight to your palette if you want to. If you already have your colors mixed over here, you can still do that. You can still go in here and get straight paint. But the key is you will already kind of know what color you have to. We already know we started with this color, and then we match it and go, oh yeah, that's the right color right there. Good, good. Right across over here. Then here, and again, I think I need a little more. I can go in there, put it there if I want, and then pick it up and come over here. That's more the better discipline. Get the paint into your palette first, and then work onto the paper like that. And you can work a lot more paint from here to here. I just put in a little bit of paint here. You can keep working more paint into your palette. Okay, now the only thing I did different here was I went the dark here and the dark here. So up here we did the two darker tonal values, the more richer high intensity here and the two lighter here. Now we're doing a little bit different. We're doing the darker here, here, and here. Now we'll do the lighter. And that's up here. Looks good. And then down here we do the same thing. Good. That is good. Doesn't that look fine? And that's the key. Again, mixing here first. You've already kind of made your darker high intensity colors over here and your lighter washes over here, and then you're just taking them and going into the paint. And you kind of, if you're working from a photograph or a book or a watercolor book, or you know, if you have some things set up in front of you like a vase of flowers and you're going to paint your flowers, let's say a vase of flowers, kind of the same idea. We figure out our colors first, get them into our palette. You can make like two sections. You can make a darker section with the darker colors, and then you can take those same colors and then just do like we did here and just thin them down and make them a little bit, you know, thinner over here and lighter, so that you can kind of already work out some lights and some darks within your palette colors, and you get them over here. All right, so now we're going to put this into practical use in just a second or two. Let me take a quick break. I'm going to switch out this paper. I'll get a fresh piece of paper. I'll empty the water. I'll clean the palette a little bit. We'll use probably the same colors here for some of it. But I just want to make sure I set this up so I'll have the next sheet of paper ready to go. And, you know, some fresh, clean water, and we'll get started in just a second. Okay, we are back, everybody. And we're going to start out by taping out an area, just so we're going to think about if we do a small composition, you know, it might turn out really fantastic. So let's put some tape around it. Let's kind of create for ourselves a little bit of a framing idea here of just putting down some tape on our paper. So I'll put one there. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can just go with maybe two pieces of tape like this, and I'm just using a drafting tape. You can use painter's tape, drafting tape, artist tape. There's all kinds of good tape out there. And I'm just going to frame out a little small area like that. And then when we're done painting, we can lift off the tape, and you'll see we kind of have a little nice composition painted and framed out really nice. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we're going to use the same concepts we just did with our paints, and we're going to use the same colors, the greens and the oranges, and we'll add a few more colors to this. But the next thing I wanted to do is just maybe take a few seconds to sketch out a couple ideas here. So I thought maybe the first thing I'll do is I'll make myself about a third of the way up on the painting. So I maybe I take a ruler and I say to myself, what's the height of this? 5 inches. So maybe if I go like 4.5 inches, 4.25 inches, I'd say about 4.5 might be good. That's about a third. I should say that's not 4.5. I'm using the ruler upside down. 1.5 inch, 1.5 here, and another 1.5 there. So 1.5 up from the bottom. If your paper is, if you put a tape down and you have it at 5 inches by 6 inches, let's say, 1.5 up from the bottom is about 1/3 up from the bottom of your painting. And then that will be our, we'll call that where our ocean horizon line is, where the ocean is, and we'll just draw a bit of an ocean. We could even do we could use our ruler. If you want to make it perfect, you just measure over here and say, okay, 1.5. You measure over here, 1.5 inches, like that. And then you can have your ocean like that, and then you can put a ruler across it too, just to get it even more, like that. So now you have a beautiful ocean level line across the paper. You'd want to make sure your tape is all straight too. You wouldn't want to have your tape going off in all different directions like this and like this. So you want to keep your paint. The best way to do it is to draw your square first and then put your tape around the square, or you could even just make 4 points around your paper, 4 dots. So you could start off with your paper and then take your paper and just say, okay, I'm going to make this 5 inches. So you would make a mark at 1 inch and put a dot. 5 inches, make a dot. Then you would come over here. Make sure your ruler's not tipped like this or like this, right? You just take that and you go over here and then you just say, okay, I want to make this 6 inches. And you make your dot there at 6 inches. And then you do the same thing over here. You come over here and say, okay, 6 inches. Well, I'll make sure my ruler is not going like this or this. Keep our ruler level like this. And put a dot there at 6 inches. And then you have all your 4 dots in the corners. And then you can just line up your dots with your ruler and make pencil lines like that, just one to the next. And you go right around with your ruler, all the way around with your ruler, and then you have your square, and then you put your tape right around the pencil line. You could even just put the dots in first and then put your tape on. You don't even have to really draw around this with the ruler if you don't want to. And then, of course, we use the ruler to draw our ocean horizon line, which is 1/3 up from the bottom, which we said was 1.5 inches. And that's about it. And you can enlarge and you can make it smaller or larger. Just depends on what size you want to make your painting. If you want to make it larger or smaller, it's up to you. Then what I'll do is I'll just kind of say to myself, I want to put a little small, like shack, like a nice shack you'd see along the ocean. But first I'd want to make a little bit of some land and some rocks. So I'll put some land and rocks like that. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can see that. So I'll make some land and rocks here. And then I'm just going to go right across and we'll create that line all the way to the very other side of this part of the painting over here. Then I'd like to make a nice like fishing shack, where the fishermen keep all their gear and their boats and everything. And then we'll make a little roof across here. So basically that's a rectangle first. Then what we'll do is we'll make a angled line up here for the gable roof like that. And then another one here. This one goes down a little further, that line, but pretty much about the same. So you kind of make a triangle and a square and then another rectangle over here. You could think of this as a tissue box. You could think of this as a glass or a cup, a square. You could think of this as an upside down ice cream cone. or you could think of this as a upside down, or you could just think of this as a pyramid. Then you could think of this over here as just another line coming up from here. And instead of making another pyramid, we're just going to go across here and make the roof like that of the shack. So that's a simple way to make a little sea shack on the side here. Then you can take your eraser if you want. I usually use a kneaded eraser. These black soft gummy, they're the best because they don't make any crumbs. This way you don't have any crumbs in your paint and water. And I lighten up a little bit on that, and then maybe I make it a little more, I don't make it as perfect. Maybe a little bit of wavy lines here and there. I don't want it to look too perfect, but when I'm trying to draw it and show you first, I'm going to make it a little more straight lines and things. But it's actually good if it's a little bit, you know, looks like a shack that's been there for a while, and it's got a thatch roof on it, like that. Just some ideas. And then maybe there's another side of the shack too over here. That comes over here like this. Like that. And then maybe we'll have a tree over here too. Let's do a little bit of some tree shapes. Just like a tree shape up here. And we're not going to do too much fancy ideas, just a kind of the shape of some trees over here. Maybe we'll do some palm trees. And we'll put some tree trunks over here, like that. And then maybe a couple palm trees over here. Why not? Let's do a couple palm trees over here. And we'll just do some shapes here, some palm tree shapes. Like that. Maybe another one over here too. A couple over here. Have some fun. Just get some tree shapes going. Palm trees, actually, I tend to make my trees mostly so I kind of tend to make my trees like they are where I live. So where I live in the United States, in the Northeast, a lot of the trees are like this. The branches are all kind of going like this all the time. So I'm not used to the palm trees all that much. I paint them as much as I can. I really enjoy that. So palm trees are more, a lot of them, they have some branches going up, but they have a lot of branches like flowing down like this, palm trees. So that's how I have to remember doing that over here on my painting. I want to make sure I get that. I want to capture that, like the palm trees kind of swaying over. They have those nice flowing bows going that way. The boughs. And there's another. Yeah, so they kind of arch downwards like that. Then at the top they're a little more like that. And maybe we'll make one where the wind just happened to make that one flow this way really a little bit. A little gust of wind came over here, and this was the first tree that got kind of swaying quickly, and then the other ones are sort of make some movement and excitement. So we're getting into a little bit of technique here with drawing trees and things, palm trees and a little shack here. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this. We're going to use the same techniques again to mix our paints first, and then maybe over here we'll have a boat like this. We'll put just a boat over here on the side, and it's a fishing boat, and it's got some fishermen in it. So we'll do a couple fishermen here, and I'm just going to do these really, really quick. A couple fishermen here. Maybe one has a hat there like that. They're in the boat, and maybe they're doing some fixing the nets, getting ready to go out to do some fishing. Okay, so now we have a little exciting, fun scene to do. We have some water here. We'll put in some water and some sky washes. So let's get started painting in just a sec. I just want to take a quick break, and I forgot. Let's put in a doorway here. That looks good like that. Maybe a window over here. a couple of windows here, and then maybe another window over here like that. And all right, I think we're already having some good ideas on our paper here. Keep it more simple if you don't want to paint, draw as much details. Maybe just do this shack and a couple trees, and that's it. Try a shack, a couple trees, and maybe, you just get in your water line and a little bit of your land here with your rocks. So if you can get the land in here with a little bit of rocks and your ocean line, and then just get the shack in with maybe 1 or 2 or 3 trees, maybe another tree over here, or just maybe this one shack and a couple trees, you're all set. We're just doing a composition here. It's just for fun. We're just working out some ideas here of how we're going to use setting up our palette with our paint colors so that it's a lot easier to go in and do a painting versus trying to figure it out as we're going in our palette. We want to make sure we mix our colors first. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to come right back, get our colors on. We've already got a start here, and we'll get a few more colors in our palette, and then we'll transition all this over to our painting and do a nice, beautiful, quick, fun painting. It's not going to take a long time, maybe 20 minutes. And we'll have a gorgeous painting in 20 minutes. You can't believe it because you have everything already prepped and ready to go. So that's the key here. You prep all your paints first, then you go in and do your painting quick, and you have a nice, fast, quick pace of doing your painting, and it comes out much better, and you're not doing too much fussing with it because you have everything already ready to go, and you get everything in there quick. All right, I'll be right back in a second. All right, let's get started with our painting process. Again, we're going to mix our colors up onto the palette first, as we said we would do. And we have some greens mixed up. This is good. So we have some high intensity greens over here, the darker tonal values. And then over here, we'll rinse our brush off, pick up a little bit of the lighter green over here, some of the darker green up here, just to kind of keep our minds focused on the fact we want some darker darks and we want some lighter lights. Same thing with the orange here. We got the pumpkin type orange there, and then the tangerine type orange there. And a little bit of the lighter washes of the two. A bit of water in there. Okay, so we have our oranges and greens mixed up. Then we'll do some yellow. I'm going to mix some yellow here. And if I dip a little bit of water in there sometimes to activate a little bit of the color, you can do that too. A little bit of brown. I like to make like a yellow ochre color or a raw umber type color like that. And then we'll make it a little darker up here. So we'll go with a darker umber, raw umber up here, and then a lighter, maybe a raw sienna type looking color if you're kind of used to my palettes that you use. So I know some of you are probably have been watching for a long time, and you use my regular palette or something similar to that. So I'm kind of just talking out loud the colors I'm seeing as I'm working here. And then we'll do a lighter version over here of the yellow and brown to make like a raw umber, light raw umber. And then maybe some light raw sienna. Okay, and then we'll do some blue. Let's do some blue here, and maybe we'll do a darker blue up here, maybe a lighter blue down here. So we'll just use 2 blues, this here, which is kind of like a cobalt or a French ultramarine if you're used to my palettes, like that. And then the kind of a turquoise green here. Could be called the Viridian green. And then we'll take this and make the lighter version over here. Like that. So that's the lighter version with a little more water. And then this is the thicker version, more intense color over here. And then we rinse our brush off, take off a little bit of water on the sponge. And now we have our dark, high intensity turquoise color, viridian color, as we call it. And then over here we just take some lighter wash and make that light, like that, with more water, less paint. So essentially that's what we're kind of accomplishing here, is more paint, less water over here, making our darker, high intensity tonal values with our colors. And over here we have lighter colors, less intense, and more water, less paint, but the same colors right across the way. And now we can focus on the painting, and we can just go in here and utilize all these colors just the way we see them. So the first thing we'll do is maybe, I'm going to take a little bit of this and start over here. And I'll maybe do a little bit of this side of the shack. I'll do that. I'll get some of that shack in over here, like so. And I'll go right down into the, I'll just go here right along and kind of get some color, same color, flowing on down here onto the ground area. I'll paint around the figures, but I want to get that same color right across the ground level, like that. Then I go in, rinse off the brush, take some water off, and maybe we'll get some green and orange. Fix in any, put in some, any old green or orange, just to give it a little variety, the colors. Same thing over here too. Then we'll make it a little darker up here. Take a little bit of blue, we'll take a little bit of blue and put a little bit of blue up in here. Like that. Then over here, we're going to rinse off the brush, dry off the water, and we'll make the roof of the, it's going to be a little bit lighter, the roof of the shack, like this. We'll keep that kind of light, and we'll bring that same color right down over the whole side of this shack over here. But we're going to pretend the light's coming from this way over this way, and that's the perfect time to grab our magic marker or pen or whatever, and we just put a little bit of a light insignia up here, like this. A little bit of a spotlight, like that. Just so we know the light's coming from this direction. And this way, if you're in the middle, does this make sense? If you're in the middle of your painting and you're kind of working your washes and things, and you go, oh, where's the light coming from? Right away, you look for your light insignia, and you go, oh yeah, it's coming from this way. This way you kind of keep yourself on track with your light source and kind of where you need to put your shadows and so forth. So we're going to go in again and do some more roof over here. So we're working on the shack first, really, for the most part. And then we'll do some more we'll paint over the whole shack, a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, like that. And if you go over a spot, you think you might have gone over a spot that you didn't want paint, you could just take a tissue and lift up a little bit of paint with the tissue, like that. And we'll go in here, maybe make a little shadow in there. We'll make this darker, maybe. Maybe even some brown in there. Like that. Maybe a little shadow under here. All right, that looks pretty good. Let's get some raw sienna over here. Maybe we'll make some lighter wash over here. And we'll put some stones. We're going to pretend there's some stones over here, and there's a seawall where they might have taken some large stones. We'll let this dry. We'll just put a light wash on there using our lighter wash over here on this side. And I mix up the colors, maybe a little bit of light green too. That viridian green, or we can call that a turquoise. Put a little bit of that turquoise green over here too. We'll put that in the water as well. I paint around my figures. And already you can see we have a really good looking bit of washes on here. And we didn't have to work too hard. We have it all worked out here first, all the colors. So you can kind of see I'm mixing up all my colors together. So another thing a lot of artists struggle with, and I did myself too when I first started, is kind of just doing like one or two colors in a painting and forgetting to kind of mix it up and mix around the colors and get different interesting colors. That really helps a painting a lot if you can kind of, within all of your washes, you're kind of always mixing little subtleties of different colors. So we're using the blues, the greens, these gold colors, the blues, the greens up here too. We're going to make that for our trees over here. And then we're going to make maybe some brown in here too. Let's kind of gray down this green a little bit. This green's a little bit high intensity. Let's kind of cut that down a little bit. Then we can even rinse off our brush, dry it off just a touch, and then you can take some of that paint and start working it around over here on this tree. And then later we can go back, and I'll even splash a little bit for this tree. And then later you can go back and add some other paint on top of this. But let's get the first bit of wash down first. And again, the light's coming from here, so the darker side of the tree where there's shadow. So we can add a little bit of blue. We can come right over here and get some blue shadow colors. That's going to be over here on this side of the tree, the shadow and colors. So that'll be the darker side over there. And then we can take some brown over here and just mix up some brown on the side with a little bit of blue and some green. So now you can start mixing some colors for the trunks of the trees, which would be brown and green and some dark blue. And then we'll just flow those right in too, right like that. And we'll do some darker windows here. With that same dark, we'll just start using that dark right across the picture. Like that. Maybe even a little bit of dark over here. Maybe a little bit of a lighter green over here. A little bit of a splash here and there. Like that. And then we can do a little bit of a couple of palm type branches like that. All right, a little bit of shadowing over here. A little bit of blue, straight blue for the shadow, like that. A little bit of shadowing under the shacks here. Okay, wouldn't be there though. Maybe a little there and here. Shadows are all going to be on this side of the picture. A little bit of shadow under there. All right. Okay, we've done a lot so far. Let's take a quick break. I always mention if you take breaks, it kind of gives you like a little bit of two advantages. One advantage is when you take a break, you get a little bit more relaxed, and when you come back, you can look at things and kind of see things a little differently and think, oh, I could do this or that maybe next, or kind of like game plan a little bit. So you kind of have a little more free time to game plan if you take a couple breaks here and there as you're painting through your painting. And then also, it gives the paint a chance to dry a little bit, which is always good to have. If you can have the paint dry a little bit and then come back and keep working, sometimes it can work out good too for your advantage. If you let the washes dry a little bit and then you come back and you start painting again, you'll notice that, things won't maybe get out of control as much. You won't have to be so much worried about things like, kind of like unpleasant things like blossoming or blooming out into the washes and things like that, and cauliflowers they call them, things like that. So let's take a quick break though, but I think we did get a good bit of work completed here so far, and I think we're halfway through it. So I think we have another 15 minutes and we'll be completed. And I think you're really going to enjoy the rest of this. And I thank you for watching. And also too, wanted to mention, if you want to stick with this channel, stick with me here, learn tons of new techniques all the time, as well as really methods that you need to really master and make sure you're really on top of, so that you can keep your painting process a lot easier for yourself, so that you don't struggle with worrying about colors and what are you going to mix. We did talk about this really a lot over and over again, but it really it's really great to kind of go over the fundamentals over and over again. Every once in a while we'll do these videos where we cover really key fundamental methods and techniques in watercolor, but we'll do a painting too as well alongside this. But this is more of a composition, but it could be a finished painting too if it comes out really good. And so again, I would mention, please subscribe if you like to, on the right-hand side below, if you really enjoy the channel and the content here that you're seeing. And if it's your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming by. And I also mentioned too, I have a new book, Watercolor Methods for Success, and it'll be linked below in the description box right below in the video. You'll see my book. It's a little small link that links you right over to Amazon. You can pick up my book. It's got tons of great paintings in it. You can paint lots of great compositions just like this from my book, because I have, a lot of paintings in there that are kind of smaller compositions just like this one. That'll really, keep your techniques and your methods in watercolor really sharp. And that's about it for right now. Let's come back in just a minute or two. Let me take a break, and I'll be right back for you, and we'll finish this up, and you'll see how gorgeous this is going to look with the sky wash, the palm trees, and a little bit of water, and we'll do a little work to the boat with the figures, and we'll be 100% complete. All right, so we're going to continue on working. I'm going to change out my water quickly. Put some water in here, some fresh, clean water. It's always good to keep changing your water. When you see it getting muddy and murky looking, try to change out your water. That's a big important part of keeping colors looking really fresh, is by just keeping some clean water. You don't have to put a ton of water in your glass or your water container, whatever you're using for your water bucket or water container. But try to keep that water fresh and clean. I always mention that, definitely helps a lot, because if you're going to put some light washes on here, we're going to do some sky washes and water washes in a little while. We'll probably change our water again one more time after we do these few washes here. But let's get right into it. Now the next thing I mentioned is, since we're going to be painting some palm trees here, let's get our sky wash in first, which is kind of where, again, I'm game planning. I just took a break and I came back now, and I'm realizing as I'm coming back and looking at my painting, I'm saying, okay, when we're looking at this together, we're saying to ourselves, okay, we're going to do some palm trees. Would it make more sense to paint in the light sky first, a nice blue sky maybe, and then paint the palm trees over the top? Or would it make more sense to paint the palm trees first and then paint the light sky? I think you're going to probably agree with me that it's probably easier to put the sky wash in first, a light blue sky wash, and then once that dries 100%, then we can go over the top of it and paint in some of these beautiful palm trees. I think that's the way to go. And we're not going to put a ton of water on this. We're just going to take a little bit of fresh, clean water and maybe dampen the paper a little bit here and there. I think I'm going to dampen the very, very top first. So I'm going to go right across the top of the paper and dampen that just a little bit with some water. Rinse, take my brush again, add in a little bit of water to the brush, and then just maybe do another little bit of dampening of paper across here. And then we can also, if we want to, take a damp brush, just a damp brush with no water, just damp, and go around the top of the shack so that we make a little bit of a wet line so that no water flows into the rooftop of this, which I think is really a good help. So if you can take a damp brush and just go one time around the top outer edge of your rooftop of your shack like that, then no water will flow into it. I think that's a big positive for this right here, for this painting, so we don't kind of lose control of the nice, really light shack roofs there. Okay, so now we have that. Let's take some blue. We'll mix our blues right here that we already have, and let's just have some fun and go across like this. Nothing too fancy. I would go up top first, up here, maybe get the top very, very top, kind of like a nice good blue wash up there. Like that first, with a little bit of maybe brown to just make it a little bit gray down a little bit, like that, in a few spots. And then what's fun about this, just do some nice, leave some white in there too. We don't want to go all blue. Let's leave some blue, whites for some clouds. And that's all I'm going to do is go across here on an angle like this. Just like that. And I'm going to leave it lighter at the bottom with a little bit of this color like this. Some of that raw sienna, kind of like that little golden color. That looks good along the where the sky meets the ocean and the hills here. You can even take a little bit of that up here, and that is it. Let's not get too and then a little bit of horizontal lines across here for the sky on the right hand side, and that's perfect. That's good. Then let's go for it. Let's do some water. While we'll let the sky wash dry, let's start doing some water. We're going to make the same colors for the water, plus a little bit of the green here, a little bit of that turquoise color. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that blue that we just had, a little bit of the turquoise maybe too, and let's just kind of get some colors going in here. And this is the same thing. I would just do some really light washes on the water like that. Maybe a little bit of that raw sienna too, a little bit of the turquoise. And I'm kind of just really, you can see I'm just kind of dragging it all this way, you know, just kind of giving it that feel of interesting flow of the sky and the water kind of going in the same direction. That tends to look good in a painting when you have like a flow to things. It definitely works pretty good. I'll put a couple of splashes. If your splashes don't come out good, no problem. You take a tissue and just blot them up quick, like this. Okay, and that's about good. And then we'll take some of this. And then closer to the very, very bottom of the painting, you're going to add a little more details. So we'll do some of these X strokes like this, where the water, you kind of feel that waviness of the water like this. That's what we do here. We get some of that wavy, just some of that wavy feel. Makes it kind of feel like there's some movement to the water like that. And you can do a little more up here, but I wouldn't do too much above the bottom, because that's kind of like where the details are, is close up here. This is the closest part right here, this bottom of the painting right here. It's almost as if we're sitting in a boat right here. We're in a boat, or maybe we're in like across the way on another island or something, and we're looking across. So this is the closest part right here to us. And then we're looking across, and then we're seeing the boat and the shacks and the trees and the sky, and then the distant ocean over here. So this will be the closest. That means you have more detail here. So that's where you can, and then you can let this dry. You can let this dry right here, and then add more waves once it dries, because now it's to the point where I can't really add too much more details to this, because the paint's starting to dry, and it'll look a little funny if I keep going over it over and over it. So let's leave that as it is. And then right now I can see I could use a little bit of a shadow, maybe some green and blue. So I'm just going to mix up some blue, use some of this green, maybe a little bit of brown to get it a little bit darker. And we're just going to have a little shadow here under the boat. like that. And then for the boat, we might add a little bit of that golden color again. We'll rinse off our brush really good, take off some of the water, and we'll use some of this orange and gold color. And we'll put a little bit of shadow there, and that should be good. And again, if anything gets a little bit funny, lift it up with some tissue. And again, I don't want to get too brown and blue now. I'm just mixing some of my own colors now, just to get a little bit of a dark under there, like that by the boat. And I think we're almost finished. I think the palm trees is all we have left. And if I touch the paper and I look at it, it looks pretty dry. Yeah, I think we're good. We can actually paint our palm trees in now. Let's get that done. We'll paint our figures too as well. So let's get some palm trees. We're going to use kind of a mixture of the greens that we already mixed. And let's do that. And these are lighter looking. You can kind of see that. And then over here too, we have some of that kind of that golden brown color too. Let's use some of that. So we use the greens and the browns here. And then here what I do is I rest my hand on the, I don't want to lean into the paint, so I'm just kind of using my pinky to rest my pinky on the top of the paper where the tape is up here. And this way I can get these trunks of the trees in here. And I won't get too fancy with this, with the palm trees. Just some indications of some of the palms and the needles on the palm trees like that. Have fun with this. Quicker is better. Instead of fussing too much, just try to get a couple indications of the palm trees, the needles, and that's it. If you've already put the pencil marks in there, then that's fine. You can just go right over the top of them. And I'll just do some more. And I think that's pretty good. I'd like to go a little bit darker here with some brown and blue, just to get a little darker spots under here. A couple like on the trees, maybe a little bit of shadow over here on some of the sides of the trees, maybe a little bit of that, just to kind of darken them up a little bit there. I leave them lighter up top and maybe a little darker at the bottom. We could add a couple darks like that, just to jazz them up a little bit like that. And then maybe there's some blue shadowing on some of the roof areas where the trees are, like that. I don't know if there's any shadows over here. Maybe there's some shadows on the roof over here. I'll put a couple of shadows across this roof. And if you think the shadows don't look great on the roof, you can lighten them up a little bit and just maybe blot them up a little bit just to leave a tiny bit of shadows on there. And then maybe a little bit of darks over here on the little bit of brown and gold over here. And some blue too. here there might be some seawall, so there's some big stones over here on the wall. So seawall there, some stones. Try to maybe take a couple spots and lighten it up a little bit so it doesn't look all the same, like that. And maybe there is a little bit of a shadow along this too, like that. That looks pretty good. We have a shadow kind of across there. And then let's make our shirts here, make a red shirt. So we'll take a little red, bit of red, and we'll make a red shirt for this one fisherman here. He's got his red shirt on there. And then maybe the other fisherman has a blue shirt on there. There we go. So we have our couple fishermen there. Okay, so now we have all the ingredients of a good composition and painting here. We have our boat, our fishermen in our boat. We have our sea shacks, our palm trees, our trees, water and sky looking really good. Again, we can go in and get a little bit of water and pick up some of this turquoise green and blue again. And then maybe we can make a few more of these. Just a little bit of this here, wave action. We'll do some waves here, just like this. I think it looks good when it's close by, right in the foreground, but not too much. And I would caution us to be careful with details. When you start to do details, try to do just a few, and then kind of let it be, not too many, just like that. That's good. Just like an indication, like that. And then maybe we'll have a little bit of some over here, the ocean over there. Like that. And then maybe out in the distant ocean, there's maybe a sailboat. Like that. There we go. A little bit of a sailboat there. Very, very light though. It's in the distance. So when you have anything in the far distance like this, it has to be very, very light. Almost, you know, very, very super light, because it's far away from we're close right here. Like I said, we're kind of viewing this right from the foreground here, really close. And then this would be a sailboat way far in the distance on the ocean there. And you barely see it. All you see is a little bit of the faint color of the light sails going across there. Maybe there's another boat there too. Maybe there's a boat over here too with a couple sails like that. And maybe we have a shadow here just on the back of this boat. And I think that's perfect. It looks just the right amount of details to, you know, look fine. We kind of really covered the palette, really mixing our colors all ahead of time. We really didn't have to mix any colors really beyond what we had mixed originally, except when we first started this painting, except, you know, we did go with a little bit of red and blue for that we mixed kind of on our own for the shirts. And then a couple of the darker maybe colors we kind of mixed we took additional straight paint right out of the palette to get some of those dark colors that you see, like the windows, the door, some of the shadows, the tree trunks. We did make a little bit of extra darks, and then down here too, we had a little bit of extra darks that we mixed up. But for the most part, we were working from all the colors that we had originally put onto our palette, and that's the main thing I wanted to kind of show here, how you can kind of pre-mix all your colors ahead of time, get them in your palette, and then you start your painting and you just work right through your painting. No stress, no worries. You got all your colors ready to go. No more thinking about what colors you're going to use. You have them all right here, and then you're just, you know, kind of mixing them and using them as you go, and you get a great result like this. And we'll just peel off the tape, and you can kind of see how once we peel off the tape, it's going to look really good. And we'll just do that quick. And you'll see the beginning of the video too. We'll have this in the beginning of the video. In case the video stops, you can go right back to the very beginning of the video, and you'll see the very, very beginning will show you the finished painting. And I think that's about it. I think we've done a really good job. Great work. And we're going to see you on the next video. I really thank you again for coming by and painting with me. We're having a ton of fun here on this channel. And again, I try to cover mostly the fundamentals of watercolor, the basic techniques and methods of watercolor week after week, month after month, and year after year. This way you kind of, if you're following my channel on a regular basis, and if you subscribe below on the right-hand side, you'll be getting all my videos every week. We're working together every week, brand new videos every week. And then in this way, you can kind of get those basic fundamentals always in your mind, thinking about it when you're watching the videos and working along. And eventually it'll just kind of stick with you, and you really have it. And it'll be, watercolor will be a lot more fun and a lot more enjoyable, and you'll be creating better paintings all the time. I really promise you that if you're just practicing along and working along with us each week. So have fun, enjoy your painting, happy painting, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.